everybody. Welcome to our next edition of CTE Live, our little live streaming podcast. My name is Michael Graham at MGA Travel. Welcoming today, Mr. Joe Estep, Senior Director of Strategic Accounts.
Correct.
At Oceania Cruises. And he's going to be telling us about Oceania today. First, I wanted to go over a couple of housekeeping things, but welcome, Joe. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We've done a lot of shows, but I think this might be the first one we've had to do virtually.
Yeah, it's true.
I see we still have people signing on, and we're welcome, guys. We appreciate you being with us today. If you haven't been on Oceania, you're going to hear about a wonderful cruise line. I took a group. I know it's a wonderful product. It's definitely the finest cuisine at sea. So, all right, Joe, all around fun guy. Tell us all about Oceania. Take it away, my friend.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. And again, glad to be here. Really appreciate the opportunity to get to speak to everybody. It's one of the great things that I think has come out of all of this is, pushing forward technology. Because I can remember our company, we've been using Zoom for over a year now, but typically we would have, company conference calls and people would get on and hardly anybody would turn on their cameras. But now, everybody does. This is, how we communicate these days. So it's been pretty interesting to see, but obviously it's been an interesting and challenging year for all of us in not only the cruise industry, but just travel in general. So we're going to get everybody up to speed on all of that. But I thought to start things off, not knowing really who the audience was today, but wanted to make sure everybody was familiar with Oceania Cruises and, how we're unique and a little bit different than a typical cruise experience or what I think most people associate with a typical cruise experience. As I said, Oceania is unique in the sense that we focus on different aspects of the travel experience. And so the guests that are sailing with Oceania are typically not interested in a lot of the stuff that you find on some of the larger cruise ships out there. And really, they're driven more by a desire to explore and see the world and to do it comfortably. And as Michael already mentioned, to eat very, very well on board our ships. And so these three key elements, having the finest cuisine at sea, being the destination specialist, and offering a more upscale experience on smaller vessels is really, the pillars of the Oceania experience. And so if that's something that you're interested in, I think you're in the right place. So when you look at the ships themselves, when I say smaller, it's pretty striking. If anybody's been to the port of Miami while we are in port, you've been able to see the contrast when you have our little ship over on the right-hand side in Terminal J, and you can see all the big ships lined up over on the left hand. It really gives you that visual of just how much smaller they are. And another, in addition to technology, I think I heard a quote recently in one of the conferences I was at that disruption in the marketplace tends to accelerate trends. And so there's a lot of trends that I think we've been ahead of the game on, which I'll discuss throughout the presentation, that are becoming even more of an appeal in this new environment that we find ourselves in, like having a smaller ship. 680 guests on our smallest vessel, 1,250 on the largest. And we're not still sure exactly what the full occupancy is going to be when we get back into the waters, but definitely reduced from those numbers. So again, I think the idea of sailing with fewer guests, not only because it offers a more intimate experience on board, you can get into smaller ports of call, all of those things, but just from the whole health and safety angle, I think it offers some benefits there additionally. So with the two classes of ship, the smaller of the two is what we refer to as our Regatta class. As I mentioned, 684 guests total, which gives us a staff to guest ratio in the 1 to 1.7 range. And that is, again, a big difference than what you'll find on some larger cruise ships. Service is really paramount. These ships, as you can see through some of the pictures that scrolled through, have a different decor as well. It's definitely not the feel of a Las Vegas casino. It definitely feels more like an upscale hotel while you're on board. So definitely a different environment. The other class of ship that we're operating is what we call the Oceania class. We have two of these. These are slightly larger with a capacity for 1,250 guests, but as you see, that staff to guest ratio actually improved. So while the size of the ship increased, we didn't increase the amount of guests more than we did the crew. It's all about offering that personalized service. And again, I think in the post-COVID environment, once we have a better idea of what occupancies we're allowed to sail at, we're going to make sure that we can ensure that that same level of service is continued on, however we can make that happen. Whoops. Slides are stuck. Sorry about that. Clicked a little too quickly. So looking here again now, just to the design of the ships, one of the terms we always use is this residential design. We want you to, I know it's cliche, but we want you to feel like you're in your home away from home. So the designers that we worked with are more traditionally residential home designers like Ralph Lauren Home, who designed all of our owner suites. We also worked with Dakota Jackson on the Oceania suite on the O-class vessels. And so it definitely has a country club feel in the public spaces. And a big misconception that I think people have about smaller ships is that smaller ships mean less space. And that is definitely not true. When you look through all of the accommodations, for instance, the amount of square feet, our standard category veranda on our Oceania class ships is 282 square feet, which is some of the largest standard category verandas in the industry. We also have suites that get all the way up to over 2,000 square feet. With our owner suite, that one that's designed by Ralph Lauren Home, and it's fully furnished by Ralph Lauren Home as well. So just because the ships are smaller does not mean you get less space. In fact, we have more space per person than the typical mass market or premium cruise line. And so it's just definitely not true. So moving on from the ships, talking about the food itself, as I mentioned and Michael backed up, we have the finest cuisine at sea. And the reason we're able to say that and boast that is because we really put our money where our mouth is. In fact, we spend more money per person on food than any cruise line in the world. We have more chefs per person and we have more galley space per person. A unique feature about our ships, unlike most any other cruise ship that I know about, is that we have a separate galley for every single restaurant on board. You may not know that, but you go on these bigger ships that have, up to 20 restaurants sometimes, but they still have one big industrial sized galley that's doing all the work. And to be able to operate, you have to introduce a lot of efficiencies when you're using just one kitchen, right? There's a lot of different skills, techniques, and equipment that goes into making French cuisine versus Asian cuisine, for instance. And so some of those efficiencies that they introduce are things like the term par cooking, which I know, Michael, you're probably familiar with your experience in the restaurant industry. But if you're not, par stands for partial. And so what they do is they create a lot of the food ahead of time, and then it sits on a rack until you order it, and they can finish it quickly and serve it quickly. When you're serving 3,000-4,000 guests and you have one kitchen, that's the kind of stuff that you have to do. But when you're able to have a separate galley for every single restaurant, we can cook a la minute, as they say, just like a shoreside restaurant would. We're cooking to order. And so the food, just because of that, comes out much fresher and just better overall. But in addition to that, it all comes down to the ingredients. Our executive culinary director from day one has been Master Chef Jacques Pépin. And if you're familiar with Jacques, he's been in the industry. He was really one of the pioneers that started the whole food revolution in the United States with Julia Childs and James Beards and people like that. So we're very fortunate to have him on the team. He's very involved in everything we do. And he has a saying, he says, you can be the best chef in the world, but if you have a lousy tomato, there's really nothing you can do with it. And so when you set out to create the finest cuisine at sea, you have to source only the finest ingredients. And so things like fish, it's really unheard of, but we have a fresh fish program. So we source local fresh fish where we can, or we overnight into the different ports and able to have fresh fish on board. We don't serve any frozen fish. And it gets even crazier than that. I mean, things all the way down to the flour that we use. We import all of our flour from the Planchot flour mill in France. And every single bag that we get is milled specifically to the specifications that we ask for all of the different breads and pastries that we're baking fresh every single morning. And the list just goes on and on. But that's really the secret when it comes to creating the best food, is you have to have the best ingredients. Then it really moves into, the team and the galleys themselves. And being headed up by Jacques Pépin, you can't do much better than that. In addition to him, we have 2 other French master chefs. There's only a few hundred people in the world that can claim status of being a master chef, and we have 3 of them. So, it's a world-class team in the galleys. They've all come from the best restaurants and hotels from around the world. And we like to talk about how great they are all the time, because they truly are. And like I said, we have more chefs per person than any other cruise line. So there's a lot of these guys walking around there. And then the food itself, it's the setting that it's served in that also really sets us apart. We have an open seating dining concept. So unlike some other cruise lines, there is no set times where you dine with the same people every night. We have a wide array of specialty restaurants. And unlike other cruise lines, ours are all complimentary. So it's not like you have to pay extra to go dine at the good restaurants. All of ours are great. And we want you to be able to enjoy all of them, so there's no barrier to entry. The only thing that you need to do is to make an advanced reservation, which we allow everyone to make 1 reservation per restaurant ahead of time to ensure everybody gets to try them. And then what a lot of people like to do, because they're so great and people have their favorites, is once you're on board, you can speak to the maitre d' and make additional reservations in some of those specialty restaurants that you want to dine in more than once. So it's an amazing setting. Places like the Terrace Cafe, which has al fresco dining outside. A lot of times, because our ships are smaller and we're docked right in the port, you're dining outside overlooking the city, and you have, the best view in town, and you're dining at the best restaurant in town. And we can do that almost anywhere in the world. And so again, I think that really sets us apart and makes us unique than what, again, most people associate with a cruise experience. Moving beyond just the dining, you can't have good food without what? Good wine, right? And so this is something that I learned recently that I didn't even know set Oceania apart from other cruise lines. We have anywhere from 12 to 20 sommeliers on board any of our ships at any time. Now, I won't name names, but I was sailing on a competing cruise line for a conference that I attended not too long ago. And I was having dinner with some clients of mine. So, I was in charge of ordering for the table and ordering the wine. And it was a really unique restaurant that had a really sort of different type of menu. And so I was really unsure of what type of wine would go best. And so I asked to speak with a sommelier. And you would have thought I asked to speak to the captain himself, because it took, 30 minutes. I think they had to radio the sommelier from the other side of the ship, who had to come to our restaurant to help us. It was mind-boggling. I didn't know that they didn't have, 2 or 3 sommeliers in every restaurant on cruise ships. I thought that was just the normal thing, but I guess it's not. But that is what you can come to expect on Oceania. There's sommeliers, wandering the restaurant floor, just looking for people to help and to offer, their recommendations on different wines that they've, maybe hand selected that aren't on the menu. So totally different dining experience. And beyond just what you get in the specialty restaurants, when we built our newest vessels, the Oceania class ships, Riviera and Marina, one of the venues that we added was not necessarily a restaurant, but a venue where we wanted to be able to do a lot of different things as it related to wine. And so we built La Reserve, and we partnered with Wine Spectator magazine to create La Reserve by Wine Spectator. And so several different things happen in this space. In the afternoons, we use it as a place to have tapas and try local wines that the sommeliers have found, while our guests have been out on their shore excursions. So more local stuff that rotates depending on itinerary. And then in the evenings, we do these wine pairing dining experiences. And we have a whole bunch of different menus and wine flights that go along with them. To give you an example, the most recent one that we launched is something that you can't find anywhere else in the world, in fact, and that's our Dom Perignon dining experience. It's a 6-course meal, and every single course is paired with a different vintage of Dom Perignon. And like I said, it's the only place in the world you can have this collection of Dom in one sitting and have an amazing menu that goes right along with it. And our chefs really wanted to show off and show how champagne could be paired, with food. Everybody thinks of wine, typically red and white wines that are going with the different dishes that are available, but champagne can also pair very well. And so that's what that menu is all about. But we have La Cuisine de la Bourgeois, which was created by Jacques Pépin, which is another great menu and flight. So lots of different options there. So don't just think about us as having the finest cuisine at sea, but we also, in my opinion, have the finest wine list, the finest sommeliers, and the finest wine experience at sea as well. But it doesn't even stop there. This is like the ShamWow moment of the presentation. But wait, there's more. Not only do you eat and drink very well, but also when we built Marina and Riviera, we wanted to elevate our culinary experience in a different way. And we built the first ever hands-on cooking school at sea. So now you get the opportunity, and your guests will have the opportunity to work right alongside our chefs, learning the skills and the techniques and the recipes that they're using back in the galleys. And we're even incorporating the destination experience with this as well. So we have a wide array of different classes that you can take: knife skills classes, baking classes, cooking with fish, a lot of really interesting, in-class activities. But then we also have what we call our culinary discovery tours, where you're actually going on a little field trip with our chefs and going, to explore the port, visit the local markets, learn about the local food experience firsthand. And then you get to come back into the culinary center and learn how to make some of those things yourself. So some really awesome and fun experiences. You don't have to be, a Michelin star chef to enjoy this. In fact, I can barely boil water, but I've taken the classes and I've had an amazing time. I really enjoyed the educational aspect of it. The instructor chefs really get deep into, we're going to use this olive oil because of the acids in this ingredient pairs well with this variety of olives. And I just thought, that part of the experience was what I found most interesting. All right, let's move on from food. It's lunchtime around here and I'm getting hungry. So let's talk about what really matters to our guests, and that is traveling and seeing the world and seeing an amazing destination and doing it in an authentic fashion. And that's another one of the trends that I think has really been and will be accelerated due to the disruption that we're currently facing. And so it's interesting that some of the stuff that we were already working on prior to the pandemic is now, I think, going to be something that you see everybody else rushing to catch up on. So what am I talking about? Oops. I guess I did have a short little video here. Let me just move on because I don't think that's going to play right. All right, well, let's start with, where are we sailing? We're sailing all around the world. In fact, you can even do a cruise to see just that, all around the world. So the voyages range from 7 all the way to 180 days, which is our around the world sailing. We visit over 450 ports, 100 plus countries, every continent except for Antarctica. We do have some itineraries that do some really scenic sail bys to the continent, but we do not have any itineraries that actually touch land there. But wherever you want to go, I guarantee you we have an itinerary to take you there. And if you look hard enough, you're going to find some places that you've probably never even heard of. And that's really another big key differentiator. When you look, at most cruise lines, there's a pretty set number of itineraries, set things that they're doing, and that's what they do all year, year in, year out. Our itineraries change all the time, which can be great, but it can also cause some frustration to our guests who maybe see an itinerary they like this year, but it doesn't work for their schedule, so they want to book it the following. We might not have that exact same itinerary next year. We're constantly mixing things up, changing the mixture of ports that we're including to make it fresh and unique, and we're constantly looking for new places to visit. So another, I think, differentiator is when we have an itinerary release, which our past guests look forward to all year long. We have 2 different itinerary releases throughout the year, and it's a great day to see where Oceania is going next. But one of the things that you always find are the new ports of call. As an example, our most recent itinerary release was for our Europe and North American collections, and we had 20 new ports of call that we've never been to before in our 16 years in operation. And again, that's typical. We're always trying to find new places, and that's really what keeps our guests coming back again and again, is the experience of exploring and seeing new things. So here's just an example itinerary. I just included kind of a random one to give you an idea of what a typical Oceania cruise might look like. This is a 15-day sailing from Barcelona to London. And in that 15 days, you'll find that you're going to visit 12 unique ports. And it's not because the other 3 days are spent at sea. Many of those days are spent overnighting in one of those ports. I think there's 3 maybe on this one. Yeah, an overnight in Seville, an overnight in Lisbon, and an overnight in Bordeaux. So you get more time. And that was one of the things when we were founded back in 2003 that we wanted to change about cruising. The knock at that time was that cruising was great. You know, it was a smorgasbord of places to get a little taste of. But if you really wanted to experience a destination, you had to go back and do that by land. Well, we thought that was nonsense. And there was a simple solution, right? If you're not getting enough time to really experience a port, why don't we just stay there longer? So you'll find throughout all of our itineraries lots of overnights and evening, late evening departures. So you can experience the nightlife. Or if you want to have dinner at a restaurant in town, maybe there's a great Michelin star restaurant in one of the ports, and rather than dining on the ship, you want to dine in port. On most cruise ships, that's not possible because they're off to the next place, by 5 or 6 o'clock. So by having these overnights, you're getting a different view of the destination than you normally would on a cruise ship. So the other thing, and this is what I was talking about with regards to the trends that are accelerating. What the feedback that we keep and continue to hear from our guests is more authentic, smaller groups, more off the beaten path. We want to see these places like a local would. We don't want to just go see all the major attractions that all the tourists go to and stand in line. So we've been working to create and craft what we call our Go Local tours, which again, we hope accomplishes just what that feedback is asking for, a more authentic view of a destination, seeing a place through the eyes of a local. So some of the examples are, truffle hunting in the Roman countryside with a local, some dogs, you and a group of 10 other people going to look for black truffles out in the countryside of Tuscany. Going on a bike tour with a local when you're in Amsterdam, taking you to some of the different places that tourists normally don't get to see. And so I think, again, if you travel a lot and you've maybe been to some of the marquee destinations that all the cruise ships are going to, you could even look at this as an opportunity to revisit a destination and see it through a different lens. Not only are we doing that through our Go Local tours, but as I already mentioned, you also get that same type of experience with our culinary discovery tours. And this program has truly exploded. I mean, when we built the Marina and Riviera, I mentioned that we launched the Culinary Center, and we knew that would be a great onboard enrichment activity for our guests. But Chef Kelly, who you see in the 2 pictures there, she's really the one that has spearheaded the efforts behind this. And she's an amazing woman. So she's always challenging herself to get out there and to explore and to find more unique, authentic, off the beaten path experiences through a culinary lens. And so she's now got a team of, I think, 5 people helping her do that. And a program that began, I believe, in 30 to 40 ports worldwide when we first started doing culinary discovery tours has now exploded to over 150, I believe. And it all happened because when we were in port, Chef Kelly would get off and go to the local market to find some ingredients for the afternoon class that she was teaching in the Culinary Center, and guests kept asking to come with her. Well, we don't really have anything planned today. We just want to come to the market with you and see how you shop and see what you look for and learn about how you pick out your produce. And so she's like, man, if that's what everybody wants to do, I can create some tours and, offer an educational experience on going to the local markets and, visiting the spice market in Istanbul and then doing a cooking class using some of those, exotic ingredients to create some different types of tastes. So really exciting stuff with the culinary tours. And then lastly, when it comes to the shoreside experience, another huge initiative that we had already begun pre-pandemic is incorporating wellness more into the cruise experience, which again now you see is, I'm sure, going to be a trend accelerated through all of this disruption. But what we did is we launched a new spa called the Aquamar Spa and Vitality Center. And the idea behind this was to incorporate wellness through every aspect of a person's cruise vacation. So, you know, now on a cruise ship, everybody's got a spa, and sure, you can go and get massages and facials, get your hair done, whatever. But we wanted to offer a wellness experience for everything. So we launched our plant-based menu to start with. So now we have the largest plant-based menu at sea. You can enjoy plant-based food options on every one of our menus for every course in every restaurant. There's an option now available. We still have all of the regular, you know, spa treatment type experiences that you would come to expect in a spa. But now, not only that, but the shoreside experience can be done through a wellness lens as well. So our Aquamar wellness tours are things like a Tai Chi class on a Majorcan beach, or meditation at the top of Mount Etna, or even a dance therapy class in Sri Lanka, which is a really interesting one I learned about not too long ago. But again, it's a way for you to maybe revisit a destination, see it a little bit differently, or just for someone who wants to have a wellness-focused experience throughout their vacation. So these wellness tours, also really interesting opportunities for all of you to experience these amazing places that we're visiting. In addition to just the shore excursions, another unique feature of what we offer for a land experience is our pre and post tours, or even what we call an overland experience, which happens throughout the duration of a cruise. So on some of our longer itineraries, where you actually have the time to leave the cruise ship, travel farther inland, and then rejoin the cruise ship after your in-depth experience farther inland, and then you finish out your voyage that way. So for instance, when we're in Bangkok, you can leave the ship and go do an overland trip to Angkor Wat, where you can travel into, you know, the jungles of Cambodia to see these amazing temples. When we're in St. Petersburg, we overnight there for a couple of days, so you have enough time to actually leave and travel into Moscow. And so, again, unlike other cruise lines, Oceania gives you the opportunity to explore the entire world. We're not really limited to what touches the oceans. If you have the time, we have the time to take you and show you the world. Another interesting overland trip that will really blow your mind. Last year, we started a tour called the Himalayan Kingdoms of Nepal and Bhutan. So when we're in India, it's a 7-day overland excursion where you leave the ship and go all the way up to Nepal, Bhutan, Kathmandu. We do a flight seeing tour of Mount Everest, and then you rejoin the cruise ship and finish out the voyage later. So you have to open up your mind a little bit when you're thinking about what type of cruise Oceania offers, because whoever thought, you know, I want to go see Mount Everest, let's see what cruises are available. But that's the type of thinking you can do when you're looking through our different itineraries. So just in summary, lots of different types of excursions, whatever fits your interest: culinary discovery tours, go local tours, wellness tours, evening excursions, food and wine tours. We have even the opportunity for your travel advisor to curate private tours, which is what is referred to there when you see exclusive and select and things like that. If you want to do some of our tours that we offer and just do it with your own private group, we can make that happen for you as well. All right, so in summary, what's happening currently here at Oceania Cruises? Well, we're launching new itineraries even farther and farther out because the demand is there. In fact, our most recent itinerary collection, the 2022 Europe and North America, the day that we opened the books for this was actually the largest booking day in company history, if you can imagine that. So we know people are ready to cruise, and we've made it even easier for people to secure their place on their next cruise. And I'll talk about that here in a minute. That's, I think, a big part of why we're seeing so much demand, is it's never been easier to book a cruise. So behind the scenes, to give you an idea, we have been paused in our voyage operations now since March. Nobody ever thought we would be here in December still talking about this, but currently all of our operations are suspended through March of next year. So we're talking 1 full year without a cruise operating. which is crazy, but it also demonstrates the resilience of, again, not only the cruise industry, but the travel industry in general, that we are going to all make it through this. And we do look forward to the day we can be welcoming guests back on board and doing what we love to do. And that ties into the why of our business. We truly believe that cruising and travel has the ability to change people's lives. You know, you come on board our ship and you're one type of person and you leave differently, because we get to show you different cultures. We get to show you different foods. We get to show you different ways of living, and different ways of healthy living now with all of the wellness stuff we're doing. But we want to keep people inspired. So if you are getting any of our marketing, you're on that mailing list and getting our lovely mailers in the mail, you've probably seen a lot of that, a lot of inspiration. But behind the scenes, it's all about safety and flexibility and value for our valued guests. So some of the marketing, if you haven't interacted with us on social media, that's been a big part of what's been happening during this pause in operations. Lots of engagement with our guests. So, our cruise directors are doing trivia during the afternoons. Our entertainment department is doing a lot of different things on our YouTube channel. Our chefs are obviously hard at work doing different cooking demonstrations and things like that. So go check out our YouTube channel. There's a lot of content there, a lot of stuff that I think you might enjoy. But it's all about remembering the future right now, remembering what we love about travel so that when we're ready to go, we're ready to go. You probably saw in the news that our parent company, Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings, actually partnered with one of their fiercest competitors in the Royal Caribbean Group and formed a healthy sail panel. And this is a group of experts that was put together to really, focus in, do the research, and put together a plan so that we could return to sailing as safe as humanly possible. And I think, again, a trend that is being accelerated. The cruise industry has always been known as one of the safest ways to travel. It's, a contained environment that we have the ability to control, which sets us apart from other types of, tours and things like that are out there. We can really control everything because we own everything other than the flights to get to the destinations that we're sailing from. Once you're with us, we can really keep you in the bubble, so to speak. So the Healthy Sail Panel had already submitted their recommendations to the CDC. The CDC has already submitted their recommendations back to us. They've lifted the no sail order and replaced it with a conditional sail order, which had all of the recommendations from the Healthy Sail Panel, plus a few little extras that I think they're still ironing out. So behind the scenes, there is still talks happening between the cruise lines and the CDC, as well as the Healthy Sail Panel. And so they're just making sure that when we do return to sail, we've got everything in place to make it as safe as possible. One of the things that came with the conditional sail order is that we will be operating some test sailings before we start welcoming guests back on board. So again, we can ensure that our crew knows all of the new protocols and that we have everything ready to go to welcome you back on board. The other thing that, again, really relates to the ability to book your next cruise with confidence is our Traveler's Assurance Program. This was put in place, again, early on when we first seized our current operations. We wanted to make sure that people felt comfortable continuing to plan for future voyages. And so with our Traveler's Assurance Program, any booking that you make now through the end of the year, you're able to cancel once you're in full payment. You're able to cancel up to 15 days before the cruise, and you get a full 100% credit to apply to a different sailing. So there is really no risk at this point in time. Full payment isn't due until 90 days before a sailing. And then at that point, you have up until 15 days before the cruise before you're in any risk of losing your investment. So like I said, it's never been easier. You can book with confidence. With the Traveler's Assurance Program, this has always been in place. We just never really marketed it. But we also have a best price guarantee. So when you're booked, if for whatever reason, it's very rare, but if for whatever reason down the road another promotion comes out that is more appealing, you can book with confidence knowing that with the best price guarantee, you can switch to whatever that current offer is, as long as the category that you're booked in is still available. Basically, if you're not on a sold out cruise, you're able to change and get that new promotion when it comes out. So Traveler's Assurance Program, best price guarantee, really very, very risk, if any at all, at this point to make a booking. As far as the value proposition, to explain this, I get a lot of questions about O-Life Choice. And I think the reason is because we truly do value choice at Oceania Cruises. A lot of people in the luxury cruise space or the upscale cruise space, you know, the marketing message that you typically hear is all in inclusivity. You know, the more inclusions, the better, is I think the standard thinking. But we recognize that we have some pretty discerning guests, and they don't necessarily want everything included. You know, I don't, again, want to knock any of the other cruise lines out there, but, you know, an all-included message and an all-included package is great, but if you don't drink, you're paying for a lot of drinks that you're never consuming. Or, you know, you can apply that to any of the inclusions. If it's something you don't want, you're paying for it, even though it says included. You're paying for it whether you wanted it or not. So we like to give you the options on a lot of those things. So our standard inclusions are still more robust than a typical mass market or premium cruise line. We're not nickel and diming, so to speak. But there's three key elements that we just feel people need the options on. So standard inclusions are going to be internet. You know, Wi-Fi has become a basic human right as far as we're concerned. So who would we be to deny you your rights? So free internet, you don't have to pay to get online and check in and, you know, stay connected with the world. We already mentioned the specialty restaurants. You don't have to pay extra to dine in the specialty restaurants. Standard things like room service. Unique, I think, to Oceania is that we offer free shuttle service. So when we're in port, if you're not doing one of our amazing tours and you just want to go walk around the city on your own, we'll have shuttle buses taking you from the port to the city center. So, you know, my standard example I use, if you've ever been to Marseille, typically the ships dock in sort of this industrial area, but all the good stuff is, you know, a taxi right away. So we don't make you pay for a taxi or call an Uber. We're going to have shuttle buses running that take you to all the attractions and, you know, running on a set schedule all day long. So whenever you want to come back to the ship, you just go back to the meeting point, hop on the shuttle, and you get right back. So that's also included. There's no extra cost for that. As part of the Aquamar Vitality makeover, we also started offering free fitness classes. So all of the yoga, Pilates, the boot camps, the things that are happening in the fitness center, there's no extra surcharges for that. Another innovation that started 2020 was our announcement of the partnership we entered into with Vero Water. So we no longer have any plastic water bottles on board our ships, which is pretty exciting. We eliminated, I think it was I'm going to get it wrong. I should probably not use a number. I think it was something like 30 million, 3 million, something like that. A lot of water bottles got eliminated because we did this. And Vero Water, if you didn't know, is a really high-end water filtration service. They use it in a lot of Michelin star restaurants and 5-star resorts. So we offer both still and sparkling Vero Water service, which is served in reusable glass bottles. That's also included. All of the non-alcoholic drinks, including specialty coffees by Illy, sodas, juice, tea, all of that is complimentary. And then laundry. We have self-service laundrettes on all of our ships, and that's complimentary as well. So those are just standard inclusions. They're not part of any, you know, special promotion or book by date. That's, you know, booking cruise only, our lowest fare. You're always going to look forward to those inclusions. Then where O-Life Choice comes in is for a slightly higher cruise fare. You can get free airfare from 26 gateway cities across North America. Think all the major airports. And that's round trip coach airfare to the embarkation city and back home from the debarkation city. And then on top of the airfare, you get to choose either a free shore excursion package, a free beverage package, which is our standard house select, which is beer and wine with your meals, or what a lot of people do because they maybe want to apply this extra benefit towards a couple excursions and a couple beverages, is they can take a equivalent valued shipboard credit, and that can be mixed and matched however you want. On top of that, with, I think it was our 2021-2022 winter season, we started offering a new inclusion in free airport transfer. So when you do our air program through O-Life Choice, you used to have to add on extra transfers, that's now a standard inclusion as part of the program. So that starts on winter itineraries at the end of 21 going into 2022. So moving forward, 2022 and forward, airport transfers is just going to be one of those standard included amenities when you do our air program. Right now, for our early booking incentives, you can upgrade the air that is included to premium economy for an additional $149 per person. And that is somewhat limited because that, there's only so much premium economy space to go. So that is a promotion that typically falls off once we hit whatever limit we have on that. So I'm sure there's probably going to be some questions about this part of the presentation at the end. So we'll just keep it moving. One last little slide here to show you kind of, how we compare on these inclusions. And I know this is a moving target, so might not apply to every other cruise line out there. But, again, the size much different. When you look at the numbers, the average tonnage at 42,000 tons versus the average premium cruise ship, 77,000 tons, were much smaller. But that's not at the expense of any less space. As you can see, our standard average stateroom size is still larger than those larger vessels offer. Having all the specialty restaurant included is unique to Oceania, as well as some of the other brands, including our sister brand, Regent. But like I said, round trip air, shuttle service, and different types of amenities on board the ship. And usually when I'm doing live presentations, one of my favorite things to do at this part is to have everybody raise their hand if they are an avid rock climber. And I don't usually get a lot of hands, maybe a couple here and there. But, a lot of the stuff these cruise ships have these days, the mega ships, they have all these, cool features like rock walls. But really, is that truly what you're looking for out of your next vacation? With experiential opportunities like our hands-on cooking school, I think we offer something a little bit better. Last but not least, because you are kind enough to watch my presentation today, we did want to leave you with a special offer. If you're enticed by what you see and you want to come give us a try, we do have an exclusive offer for the next 2 weeks. Michael and his team does a lot of business with us, and so they have, a lot of special promotions going all the time, such as a select list of sailings that have prepaid gratuities. But in addition to that, any sailing that you book in the next 2 weeks, if you book a veranda and higher, I'll add an additional $200 in addition to whatever else Michael's got going on. And if you're booking an inside or ocean view, we'll still hook you up and give you $100 in shipboard credit as well. So that's our special offer. And thanks to you for watching the presentation. And I guess if you got any questions in the chat box, Michael, we can go ahead and touch on those.
Well, thanks, Joe. That was a great presentation. I appreciate that. And I do have several questions for you, and I'm going to put those together. And a lot of companies, whether it's a cruise line or a restaurant, they say they have great food, but that's not always the case. Anyway, what I want to say is Oceania really delivers on that. And I was going to show some pictures of the food. A lot of people know my wife and I used to own Sea Blue Restaurant, which is a fine dining restaurant. My wife Kelly is extremely particular about food. And we were on a 30-day Oceania cruise, as I mentioned, and it just got better every single day. And she was thrilled beyond belief. And so it's no joke. They really are the best food at sea. That's true. That's not a tagline.
See somebody commenting on our culinary demonstration videos. Thank you very much. If you haven't already, you should also follow Jacques Pépin on social media. He does a little video every day of some different recipe, and his videos are fantastic too. What I like about him is he makes everything really simple. People think fine dining and gourmet cuisine has to be really kind of fussy and a big deal to put together, but he really shows you that a lot of times it's simple techniques. You just do the techniques really, really well, and that's how you create incredible food.
So just real quickly, guys, this was our 30-day cruise, and it was a world cruise segment. So we started in Australia. If you saw that picture earlier Joe had in Sydney Harbor, that could have been our ship. Just amazing docking location. And then we got this type of cabin. It is a concierge, but you can be on the front of the ship. So I was literally underneath the captain on the bridge. I could walk out and say hello. You know, he didn't usually wave back, but I had his view anyway, which is great when you're coming into a new port or checking out those sunsets. But I wanted to just concentrate on the food. This is my wife, Kelly, and this is in the specialty dining restaurant, which again is great, but they're all great. I mean, it's not like you have to go to the specialty dining. And on top of that, it's included. And each one has their own head chef, which is amazing. And this is just some shots of food that was on the ship. And I'm on the ship. You don't see this. I mean, I know there's some experienced cruisers on the line, but this is fresh baked bread, and look at that tuna and homemade pasta. This guy's out here rolling out homemade pasta, and then over here is the chef himself. That's the executive chef on the insignia, in the bottom right window, and you'd see him on a regular basis. I mean, on another cruise line, you might get to see the executive chef, you know, waving at you when you meet the crew or something like that. But actually see him and cooking out there was amazing, and what he produced was outstanding. And then again, on that top left, just it was the atmosphere and the service included with bringing that fine food. So it's not just excellent food; it's a whole overall experience. And then you get all the entertainment and this country club casual. This was one of our groups. We always have a great time, and we ended in Tahiti, which isn't a bad place to end your cruise at all. So I just wanted to share a couple of photos of our experience. And tell you too, Tom is working on a new group for 2022. If you wanted to go in that group instead of the onboard credit Joe's offering, we're actually doing free air from smaller gateways. So, for example, the free air with Oceania is those 26 big airports. But if you live like I do near Myrtle Beach or Charleston, those are for an additional fee, usually like $199, I think, round trip per person anywhere in the world, which is, you know, nice. But if you go in this group, that's actually free. It doesn't have that add-on. I don't think the premium air works from the little gateways. I think you have to go from a big gateway. But other than that, it's an excellent value because, well, it would cost you $199 a person. So we'll have more details on that later. But Joe, I've got a couple of questions for you.
Great. I keep muting myself because it never fails. The people, you know, come to cut the grass every time I'm doing a live. So if you hear noise in the background, that's what that is.
Okay, so one of the first questions was, have you decided on proof of vaccination requirements moving forward or later on?
Yeah, like I said, the recommendations that we got back from the CDC are still being talked about, and you know, we're trying to formulate the best way to implement that. I know there's been some cruise lines that have already come out with their protocols, but if you want to get the most up-to-date and recent information as far as where we're at, it's a pretty easy website to remember. It's our normal one, oceaniacruises.com/health. And there you can actually read the full report from the Healthy Sail panel and all of the most up-to-date information as far as what we're currently requiring. We haven't announced any requirements for vaccinations yet, but hopefully we'll have more concrete information soon.
Okay, and my take on that question, I can't answer to Oceania at all, of course, but I think destinations, other countries, ports of call are going to require some sort of proof of vaccination. And I think the US government will have some sort of proof that you can carry with you, sort of like a passport or a card. Since you are actually vaccinated yourself, then you have proof of that. I think that travel will be more open to you. It might not be right away. I mean, it might be, you know, next summer or beyond, but I think eventually it's going to be a very good thing to be vaccinated. And I think you will want proof if you want to travel. Okay, next one. Is the Culinary Center only on certain ships?
Yes. The Culinary Center is only available on the Riviera and the Marina, which are the two Oceania class ships. Now, I didn't even mention in the presentation, but before the start of all the craziness, we had also announced that we have two new ships on order, and those orders are still in place. They are delayed a little bit, about 6 months from when the original plans were, but we will be announcing some additional information. I think the steel cutting ceremony is planned for April for the first of the Allura class ships. And with those, I know there will be some sort of new incarnation of the Culinary Center. But right now, it's just on those Oceania class ships.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Okay, this one is, I find it curious that people at Oceania seem to pronounce even Oceania differently from one another, depending when. Could you give us the true and actual pronunciation, Joe?
Well, I think I say it correctly with Oceania. I've heard it said a million different ways, especially being down here in South Florida. A lot of different accents pronounce it a little differently, but the way that the boss man says it, Frank Del Rio, he says Oceania, so I say Oceania.
Okay, all right.
And another funny story, a little bit of trivia for you. The way that our name is spelled with an I-A at the end, I think is a source of a lot of confusion on how to pronounce it. When the company was originally founded, that I did not exist. It was Oceana, Oceania. But I believe there's an insurance company or some other big entity out there with that name and that spelling, and they said, no. And so rather than completely change the name, we added the infamous silent I.
The silent I. Okay, let's see. I have, with fewer passengers aboard, how will Oceania make up for the substantially less revenue? Higher fares?
Well, we've got itineraries currently published all the way through the end of 2022, and you can look through the fares, and I think what you're going to find is they're equivalent to what they are for 2021. And even further to that, sorry for the leaf blower outside my window. To combat, the disruption in the marketplace that we had when this first all started, we had a pretty significant across the board price reduction on a lot of our future sailings. And so I don't think that you're going to find that currently that we need to raise prices to make up for anything. I mean, not having a cruise in the water for over a year, we've had to raise significant amounts of capital to stay in operations. And we've got now a runway, is what they say in these financial terms, is that we have this financial runway that actually we have enough capital to see us through another entire year of pause operations. So, there's no rush to get cash in the bank at this point.
All right, great. Okay, the next question is, where do I sign up for an Oceania test cruise?
Yeah, that's the question of the day. In fact, there's actually a line in the conditional sail order from the CDC that says the cruise lines are required to operate sailings with, the word they used was volunteers. And so, interestingly enough, after that got published, my inbox did get flooded with requests for people to be volunteers. So I don't know if we're going to have anybody, just have the ability to volunteer themselves, but I do know some of our competitors, Royal Caribbean, didn't they send out a sign-up list for volunteers? But we'll have to wait and see.
They haven't ever said what they were going to do, but they have a Facebook page about it, and so far they have had over 100,000 people volunteer. So
yeah, I get an email every single day at least from somebody saying, and by the way, whenever you guys need volunteers, add my name to the list.
But I'm not so sure I want to go on the test cruise. I think I want to wait for an actual cruise.
I'll go whenever they want to take me. I'm sick of being home at this point.
I get that. Okay. There was another question, same question about the vaccines from someone else. I love the emphasis on food. That is one of the primary reasons I booked with Oceania for the Christmas New Year's cruise in 2021. And then I have a question. If a passenger wants to see Machu Picchu, could that be part of an Oceania excursion?
Yeah, we have several different pre and post cruise options that take you to Machu Picchu. Like there's different ways you can do it, 4 days, 5 days. And we've got some really cool itineraries that you can match that up with. Again, we don't always do the same ones, but for instance, there was one, either you could do it one of two different ways, but going from Lima to Papeete or from Papeete back to Lima, which included obviously Tahiti and the Tahitian islands, but also a visit and weather permitting a stop at Easter Island, and then ending up or starting out in Lima for a pre or post Machu Picchu package. So that was a really cool ancient civilizations itinerary to go see the Maori, how do you say it, Maori,
Maori,
on Easter,
maybe?
Maori on Easter Island, and then also see Machu Picchu, which would be, it's on my bucket list anyways.
Okay, I brought up my screen because of the next question. I figured this would be an easy way to answer it. It was, you mentioned the O-Life Choices fare versus the cruise only fare. Could you please give me a definition of slightly, as in slightly higher for the O-Life Choices? So if you guys can see the screen, and I'm going to try to make it a little larger. I don't know if you can
I'm
see
glad
this.
you pulled this up because I'm going to explain something that's also confusing, because you see three prices shown on the screen, right? There's the brochure fare column, the O-Life fare with airfare column, and the cruise only fare column. Those are not the only three prices that exist on this cruise. There's two others that aren't shown. So let me explain. The first column, the brochure fare, you can pretty much just ignore. That is the rack rate, in what the term is in the hotel industry, but that's like if you were booking and it was the last cabin and all promotions were gone and there was just rack rate. So don't look at that one. The other two are really our all-inclusive fare and our no-inclusive fare. And there's two other options. So with O-Life, it does include the airfare. But as an example, I live here in Miami. If I wanted to take advantage of the O-Life Choice offer and do a round trip Miami sailing, it wouldn't make sense for me to pay for airfare. So you can take O-Life Choice without airfare, and you get an airfare credit. So you can still get the option to choose a shore excursion package, a drink package, or a shipboard credit, but the fare would be lower than what you see in that column. The other price you see is cruise only, meaning no air, no O-Life Choice. So in the example I gave you, you could opt out of the airfare. Well, you can also take our air and opt out of O-Life Choice. So that's another price that isn't shown, is we can just package in airfare if you don't want any extra inclusions, you're not a drinker, you don't want shore excursions and don't need any money to spend on board, but you want our air, we can do that too. Does that make sense? So the two you're seeing, cruise only is the lowest price, no O-Life, no airfare. And then the other price you're seeing is with the air included and with the O-Life Choice promotion included.
And we should say those prices are per person.
Per person, yeah.
So for an inside stateroom, the difference would be $22.49, where you have air and your O-Life choices, such as a drink package. That's what I would get, or $11.49 without any of that. And as you go up, you'll see, that change. And I just picked this at random. This was the first.
What itinerary is that?
This is Miami to Lisbon, so it's kind of a
well, that one actually gets even more confusing because with those transatlantics, you can also do air one way, right? If you were in Miami and you just wanted air from Portugal back home, that's another price that's not shown also.
And then right here, it also kind of shows you, if you were to choose one of these O-Lifes on this length of cruise or this particular cruise, you would choose between 6 shore excursions, the house select beverage package, or the $600 shipboard credit. So,
and I don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole and really confuse people, but with the beverage package, the free one is beer and wine. And if you take that option, what a lot of people also do is for an extra $20 a day, you can get the unlimited open bar package.
That's what I get. I always tell people, unless you don't drink, Then if you really don't drink very much at all, because all of the other non-alcoholic stuff on Oceania, even coffee, specialty teas and coffees are included, get the onboard credit. I say, but if you drink, and you're going to be on a cruise, and so maybe you're going to drink a little bit more than you normally do, why not? You get that house select, and then once you get on board, just pay the $20 per person per day and upgrade to open bar, and then, the world's your
And
oyster.
also, not advertised anywhere, but another unique feature of Oceania, if you're not a huge drinker, but you like to have a glass at night on the balcony or something like that, we actually allow our guests to bring alcohol on board. So, even if you're in port, and you go on a shore excursion and you tour a rum distillery and you want to bring a bottle home, on most cruise ships, when you board, they take that bottle from you and say, we'll give this back to you on the last day of the cruise. With us, you could take it to your room, enjoy it all you want. So a lot of people do that too. A lot of our guests will ship wine, ahead of time. They have special wines that they like to drink, and we'll actually store them for them down in our cellars, and bring them to the restaurant for them every night. So again, when you think of Oceania, think that anything is possible. We're willing to work with our guests to make sure that they have the most enjoyable experience that they possibly can.
Okay, we have gone over a little bit. If you have like 3 more minutes, everybody, I'll try to go through these quick. And Joe,
Sure.
if you have time. With so much included, how does the normal passenger use onboard credit?
A lot of different ways. So those spa treatments and things like that, you can apply that for. But another enhancement that we did at the start of 2020 is we made it possible now. The only reason we had it in the past was technical issues with the accounting systems. But now you have the ability to use your shipboard credit before you're on board. So, like with the offer that you have going through Michael for the next 2 weeks, you get this extra $200 onboard credit. So let's say you took the free shore excursion package for O-Life Choice and you booked your 6 shore excursions. Well, you've got this onboard credit. You can go ahead and pre-book an extra shore excursion and have that credit applied to it. And other than that, you can go to the gift shop and buy yourself a nice watch and do whatever you want. Anything you spend on board. And also like gratuities. People always ask me about, can the shipboard credit be applied to gratuities? And yes is the answer. The system is a simple debit and credit bill. So everything that you get debited on your account will show up here, and then all your credits will be taken right off of that, and you pay the difference. So it all kind of washes out in the end, depending on whatever, your final bill ends up being.
That's right. And if you didn't have the drink package or you didn't have the shore excursion package, you could use your onboard credit for that too. Steve wants to know, what is the background for your Zoom screen?
This is the grand staircase of the Riviera. I think it was last year. One of the guys on my team was on board and he took this picture. You can actually see the whole thing. That's all Lalique crystal, handcrafted Lalique crystal. I forget the exact numbers. But it was like 65 kilograms of handcrafted Lalique crystal throughout the entire grand staircase. But yeah, I'm on Riviera today.
On the Riviera. This one I'll answer real quickly and I was pertinent because it's asking about Myrtle Beach as a departure airport. And I know a lot of people on the call today would use typically Myrtle Beach or maybe Charleston as a departure airport. And it's under free airfare. So normally speaking, those are small airports. They're not one of the major 26 airports where it's free from. Charleston is listed in the list of all of their many, many additional add-on airports. So if you're in Charleston, you can go right in there and you'll know it'll be $199 per person to leave from that gateway so that you don't have to drive to Charlotte or Atlanta. Myrtle Beach is not listed in the list of default airports, but we can add it after the fact once we get closer. And we can't guarantee that. We have to request it from Oceania's air department. But in the past 7 years, I've never been denied having someone change to Myrtle Beach. And in some of our groups, like Tom's group that I mentioned, it's already locked in and guaranteed to be for Myrtle Beach. And instead of paying the $199 per person, it will be free for Myrtle Beach on that cruise. But most cruises, we would put you down for Charleston. Later on, when we get closer, change you to Myrtle Beach, and you would either airport pay the $199 add-on. Okay. When are you sailing again? Get out your crystal ball.
I wish I knew. Currently, like I said, our voyages are paused through the end of March, and there's a couple early April sailings that were included in the most recent announcement. And I think that the most recent pause announcement that we made was a little bit different than some of the ones prior to that. We had sort of been on a cadence of canceling cruises a month at a time. And with this most recent one taking us all the way, till April, I think is a good sign and a good indication that, we're just giving ourselves the right runway, the right amount of time that we need to get everything in order to begin sailing in the springtime. So I'm pretty confident that, as long as ports and, destinations in certain areas are available, I think we should be, sailing in Europe this summer. That would be my guess anyways.
All right. And the last on Earth, do you have something else?
I was just gonna say, I think you'll probably see the mass market lines get in the water first initially, just because their itineraries are a little bit more complementary to what the current regulations and recommendations are. Doing shorter sailings to destinations in the Caribbean that are a little bit more controllable with all the private islands and things like that. So I think that'll be how cruising resumes, and then the smaller ships and the more exotic itineraries around the world will follow suit after that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, last question that we'll take on the air. And let me just say, if we are recording this, so if you think of a question afterwards, or you're watching the recording and you have a question, just shoot me an email, michael@mgatravel.com, and I'll be happy to answer it for you. Or if you think of something when you get off the call, you've got my email, send it to me. You can call us, anything like that. If you are watching on YouTube, please hit your little subscribe button right there, and then you'll be notified when we have another one. And finally, to see when our next CTE live event is, go to our website, mgatravel.com, and look for events and live streams, and you can sign up there. And we always have new ones coming up as well. And by the way, CTE stands for Cruise and Travel Expo, and we feature our partners that exhibit with us at the expo. It's normally every January, and unfortunately, we're going to have to skip January 21 due to COVID, but we are planning on being back in 22. So in the meantime, our valued travel partners like Oceania and Joe Eastep, who you would have been talking about Oceania next month at the Myrtle Beach Convention Center. Instead, we're doing it virtually. So it's a different way, but it's a new world right now, right? Okay, the last question from my friend Michelle. Are there any singles programs, reduced single supplements, hosted tables, etc.?
Great question. And yes, the easiest way to find that information is on our website under the special promotions tab. If you scroll down, there's a button that says single supplement or reduced single supplement cruises, something like that. So we always have a list of sailings with special offers for single travelers. Right now, we have cruises with supplements as low as 125%. Typically a single cruiser is paying 200%. The same price as if two people were sailing. So to have it reduced all the way to 25% versus that full 100, we've never had them that low before. And I think, and this is just me speculating, the single cruiser becomes a little bit more attractive when you're operating at reduced capacities. And so I think you might see even more of those supplements as we move, especially in the initial phases of the restart of cruising when we are at reduced capacities. I think there'll be more and more opportunities for singles to go at, reduced from that normal 200%. So.
All right. Well, thank you guys for all the questions. Joe, thank you for answering all of our questions and for a great presentation. Thanks for joining us, telling us about Oceania. To my clients, thanks for taking the time. I know we went over a little bit. And to those new to CTE Live, thank you for joining us today. And I wish you all a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate it.